Is there any hope for Flins to actually reach top 5 DPS when Columbina is released? Maybe. There's always a chance that they release a support for a character that just quadruples their DPS, you know? Lauma or Flins, which one would you recommend? It depends on what you want to do with your account. Personally, I lean a lot more towards Lauma than Flins, but on this account, I'm not going for Lauma. And I am getting Flins. But on main, I'm not going for Flins. Or Nefer, but I'm getting Lauma. And I think that's the right decision for both accounts. And it's not just because I have a limited amount of primos to get the characters I want. Like, I actually don't think Nefer and Flins are that valuable on my main, and I think that Nefer and Flins are very valuable on this account. Lauma is good for Nilou, Nilou is not good for Lauma. I don't think that's entirely true, actually. I think Nilou's pretty decent for Lauma. Like, the Nilou teams do look like they're going to be weaker than the Hyperloom teams, but they're going to be much better in AoE. They're actually going to be really good in AoE. AoE is dead? True, it is. True, it is. That is true. That is a good point. What about C2 Nahida plus Lauma Nilou teams versus Solo Dendro Hyperbloom? Like, C2 Nahida, Solo Dendro Hyperbloom? C2 Nahida is kind of bait. Here's the thing, okay? Nahida doesn't really change your reactions. So, realistically, what ends up happening is, if you go C2 Nahida, the main change is that instead of Baiju, you have Nahida. So your blooms can crit. They gain 20% crit. But you can't build as much EM on Kokomi. You kind of have to go healing bonus and probably at least 1 HP main stat, but maybe 2. Which brings your team DPS at 87k instead of 84k with C2 Nahida. Pretty sure you're overestimating the damage taken. It's a non-issue, but it is not a non-issue. You cannot go full EM Kokomi if she's your only source of healing on the team. That's not happening. Just Proto Ember all Nahida, Lauma, and Kokomi. You can't do Proto Ember Kokomi because not doing Sackproc Kokomi is fucking stupid. As for the rest, I mean, you can, but it costs you damage in different ways, right? Although Proto Ember Nahida is probably worth it. How will Lauma work with Nefer if she's already strong to reach 100k DPS? I don't think Nefer is going to work with Nilou. But like, the main thing is, if Nefer is a Lunar Bloom character, things are kind of weird. Because the Lunar Bloom reaction, right, the way that it works is it generates a Verdant Dew when you trigger Bloom. But the Verdant Dew generation has a cooldown of 2.5 seconds. So, you can, at best, generate 1 per 2.5 seconds. But Lauma's Holy consumes 3 of them. That's 7.5 seconds of Verdant Dew generation that gets completely consumed every 12 seconds. So you only have an additional 2 Verdant Dews that you could use on another Lunar Bloom character. What I'm expecting is that if we get a Lunar Bloom carry, they're going to use Verdant Dew better than Lauma, and Lauma is actually not going to use her Holy in those teams. Right? Because you guys got to remember, alright? Lauma's burst buffs Lunar Bloom. Right? But it buffs it by the same amount no matter what the base number is. Right? It's always the 400-ish of her EM. But what that means is that if it were possible to consume your Verdant Dews individually rather than all at once, you would prefer doing that. Because 3 abilities that consume 1 Verdant Dew each will proc Lauma's burst bonus damage 3 times. But an ability that consumes 3 at once will only proc the damage 1 time. And so Lauma's own skill doesn't have great synergy with her burst's damage bonus. Let me just double check something also in the Lunar Bloom formula on HomeDGCat. Future info, Lunar Bloom damage formula. Okay, the extra damage doesn't get increased by EM. That is kind of tragic, huh? That is kind of tragic. But it is what it is, I suppose. The extra damage from Lauma's burst, which is the M scaling. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't get additionally increased by your elemental mastery multiplier. You aren't getting more favs. I mean, I kind of wish I could get more favs, but meh. It is what it is. It is what it is. I just don't want to wish on a weapon banner. The thing is, on this account, I don't intend on ever getting a 5-star weapon. So any pity I build up here is worthless. Right? So it's basically wishes that do not go towards a 5-star. And I'll get more 5 swords eventually. Also, I'm not really struggling for 5 swords anymore. Like, it would be nice to have more. I wouldn't have to swap my gear around as often. But the third one was really the big deal. Right, now that I have 3, it's playable. And same for the Fav Lances, right? Like, I would never say no to more Fav Lances, but I have 6 right now, so I should be fine. Honestly, I probably don't need 6. I could probably get away with 5, so I could refine this one if I wanted to. But this one's... Actually, Chevalier should be on the should be on an R1 because she has so many hits, she's basically guaranteed to proc it. Then Eon-san wants R5 because she doesn't have that many hits and doesn't have that much crit rate. The R3 is going to depend on who I play. When I play Shangling, I want her on the R3. Lugi guaranteed. I mean, bro, look at this, okay? Just try to count the hits. Is it not optimal to run Chevy on Desert Sages? What's the upside? Desert Sages gives you energy on Chevaliers and HP on Chevaliers, but what does that let you do? Because if you go Fav, you can still have enough energy and HP to burst every rotation and max out your passive. So what does Desert Sages give you? It gives you the ability to build more damage stats on Chevaliers. Ooh. What does Fav give you? Fav gives you the ability to build more damage stats on your carry. That generally tends to be better. Yeah. Bro, count the hits, man. It's a lot of hits. It's a lot of hits. Your 5 is proccing. Right? 33 crit rate, more than enough. Your 5 is proccing with this amount of hits. So you don't need a high refined 5 on show. I guess this is something we could talk about. Right? Which characters care more about 5 refines and which ones care less. It's something I haven't really talked about before. Alright, so let's go through them quickly. Okay, so Chevaliers doesn't need 5 refines at all because she just has way too many hits for it to matter. Rosaria doesn't really need 5 refines because she generally has enough hits. Xiangling likes them but doesn't need them because she also generally has enough hits. The characters that like really want 5 refines are characters like Eon-san, who have a bit less hits but also can't afford to build a lot of crit rate, right? A character like Rosaria, you will end up building her on like 80% crit rate on 5. Eon-san, you can't build on 80% crit rate because you have to get attack main stats. So 2 to 3 hits and can't use crit, or doesn't really want to use crit rate circlet, means that Eon-san tends to be one of the characters that care the most about 5 refines. Actually, it's probably the character who cares the most about 5 refines. Yeah, she probably is. So, personally, my Eon-san has been on my R5 Fav pretty much since I got her. This R5 Fav is stuck to her, and it's staying there. Yeah, obviously, on-fielders that refine Fav for the cooldown will also care about it a lot, but yeah.
Squash it all down.